naturally any immigrant, would feel when they get to a new land. Did you feel any of that
Well,
when you came?
well, of
or-
course, the big difference is that I don't have the language barrier.
Right, you
Well,
really
although in some ways I.
Believe me, you do have that barrier.
Two people separated by a common language. Yes, I remember that.
So that's but it's I think that in some ways, I mean, it was easier for me. I mean, there's this I don't know what it is with you Americans, but you seem to think anyone from Britain is much more intelligent than they really are, and it's when I came here I was only 22. I didn't have the language barrier, or if I did, people wanted to hear me talk. People wanted to talk
Oh, you're
to
an
me,
exotic
and
creature.
and they'd imitate me. But as far as the loneliness thing, not really. It's actually never been an issue for me. But let's say if something big is going on, politically in England, then all of a sudden people are paying much more attention, and everybody wants to check in with you. So what do you think about the new prime minister, and what do you think about this and that? And any time there might be friction between the two, then I'll hear about it. But I don't have to deal with those same issues, and I think mostly it's because we are such good allies. If I were from France, it might be a little bit different.
And Peter, how do you begin to, try to understand your character's situation and imagine yourself as maybe an immigrant in a foreign land?
That's not so easy. As far as the immigration question is, I was born in New York City, so I suppose up here I'd be considered an immigrant. But I was the first American in my family. My parents were both refugees from Germany and Austria before the war. And my grandparents, except for my father's father, my grandparents also came over. But we were such a large extended family, and we were a fairly close family, that it never seemed as if the question of the loneliness that can come to you was ever really a question. Until my parents got much older and would occasionally think about their lives as old people will do that before they came here. And I would ask them if they missed anything, or if they ever thought about going back. My mother adamantly no, but my father did. My father, I think, missed some things. And I think things like that tended to isolate him just a little bit. He didn't like to speak of his memories before the war. He'd been a member of the underground. And it wasn't until after he was gone and somebody had written a book about it that I learned about all this. I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but the question of being and feeling out of place. The older you get, the more it seems that your world begins to peel away from you. And then there's just you left and whoever else that you can grab hold of that was familiar to you in those old days. I suppose I'm learning a little more about that now, and as I get older.
One of the themes, of course, is the male-female dynamic and what really is love, and is love as important maybe as companionship in our final years, and those are all very, very interesting questions. I'm not really sure how you came down on that, how you answered it yourself, but you certainly raised all those issues. I'll ask you, I mean, do you think it's more important to have a good friend in the later years of your life than a lover? And do lovers just become friends at that point?
Friends, it is very important for Russian life.
For Russian life?
Yes, you correct last time correctly. For me it was interesting that for Americans more important to have family, children. But here children separated from their parents. They lived very separate. In Russia we all live together, maybe in the same apartment. Maybe it is not good, but in the old, I notice, I spoke with my friends in Russia, and some of them who lived in family, they more happy than to live separate. I watched now what is my friends, how they lived in Russia, and it is interesting for me to compare different style in America and Russians.
And how about husband and wife and male-female relationships in Russia as compared to here in America? Do you see differences in that, or how men and women relate, or is that universal?
No, it is universal, yes. They divorced. Maybe here, our couples, I notice, separated, divorced easier than in Russia, because in Russia, very difficult to survive alone. And here, some couples came in America and they separated here. It is
As the couple in the
interesting
story
for me.
did.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, like this story, yeah.
Now, in my mind, there's two monumental decisions that your characters make in the course of one act. You know, the first decision, obviously, to come to America, and the second, once here, you know, to divorce. You know, those are two, you know, very, very, very big decisions that would be in anyone's life. Do you think about that, and as you're delving into the characters, and how you might react to that, and how it's written that they react to it?
Well, what comes to me is that, you know, and somebody that did come to this country and got married and got divorced, I didn't come with somebody from England, but, you know, as you, you know, you spend this amount of time with a person and then your marriage is over, and I just think it's I'm very good friends with my first husband, and I can't imagine throwing away the good parts of our relationship, you know, because we didn't work as a marriage any longer. And I think with that here is that, you know, the fact that they've still stayed in touch is so incredibly important. And here, she learned something that she'd never considered before. You know, from she really wanted to marry him. And you know, and I think not so much today, although I think it still happens. Sometimes I think that women are more likely to be putting a little more pressure on the man to get married. She really wanted to get married. She was in love with him. And he never, you know, intended to change his ways. He figured, well, she wants to marry me, so she accepts me as I am. And she never really thought of that. And yes, it made her sad, but I think that changed things a little bit for her, really understanding from his point of view. You know, well, you know, maybe he did just think, you know, he could carry on the same way. She couldn't handle it. And now she still clearly loves him as a friend. She doesn't have to worry about the chasing skirts so much anymore. It's almost like, you know, it's like me now, you know, being gray-haired. I don't worry about the camera seeing the wrinkles anymore. They're good, you know, that's part of aging, you know. It's like I don't have to worry about being the cute ingenue anymore. You know, it's the same.
We outgrew it, yeah.
You know, it's the same kind of thing, so.
I think for him, it was the question of coming to a new country and suddenly finding all of these opportunities, not just occupational, not just political, but social. It's like stepping into a brand new house, and then you want to explore all of it. And I think he would have felt held back, but at the same time, this is a connection back to the old feeling that Ludmilla was talking about. It's not quite family, but it's friends, and this is safe ground, but you don't always want to stay on safe ground. But then you go out to the other ground and you find out maybe that's not so good, and so you go back to what was familiar, what you grew up with. And I think that's probably what motivates him.
Well, thank you all very much. There's so many other themes we never even got to, but maybe next time. You've been watching a table reading of Ludmilla Anslim's one-act play, The Return, featuring actors Lindsay Bartlett and Peter Eisenstatter. Jim Clinton provided translation. My name is Don Crane. Thank you for watching this edition of Boston Play Cafe. Take care.